And that's when I said, don't stop squeezing, baby. We're almost out of lemonade.
Okay, I think we can start off there. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to another fine edition of the I'm Not Crazy podcast. I am your special co-host, Chris Longuera, and joined, as always, the illustrious Andrew Venor.
I've been listening to a lot of Limp Bizkit.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
They're doing a tour in June. At the that's Limp Bizkit. Yeah.
I'm going to we're gonna come.
Give me something to break.
Ha.
Anyway,
today we got Amelia Earhart Part 2. Long anticipated, long awaited, long anticipated.
We are really excited to move forward with the series.
And guess what? We're not going to tell you how many parts this is going to be. We're just going to keep putting parts out until it's done. Because I'm going to be honest, it's not going to be 3 anymore. It's probably going to be 4. I don't know if we're going to get to 5. I really hope we don't get to 5, if I'm being honest. But this has been kind of ridiculous. I'm very excited. Christopher is very excited. We are all very excited.
We have not even scratched the surface of, the potential of Amelia and
no joke,
her entire familial line.
When we left off, she was like 19.
Yes. Yeah.
We only covered the first 19 years of her life.
Yeah. And I gotta say, you really blew me away. I mean, I know I said that last episode, but you blew me away with the lineage of this woman.
Well, hold on to your socks because I'm about to bring in a hurricane.
A hurricane?
Yeah, because I'm about to blow you away even further.
Katrina?
No.
Oh.
No, that's unfortunate.
Is that insensitive?
I'm leaving it in either way. You dug your own grave.
All right.
Yeah. So, you ready for the intro? You ready for the intro?
Without further ado.
Okay, this was definitely not written by AI this time, I promise you.
Not at all.
Welcome back to our podcast series on Amelia Earhart. In this episode, we'll delve into the remarkable journey of the aviation pioneer as she learns to fly and achieves groundbreaking feats that leave an indelible mark on history. What a sentence. Holy shit. From her early days in aviation to the moments of triumph that cement her legacy, we'll explore the highs and lows that defined Amelia Earhart's unparalleled career. Join us as we unravel the gripping tale leading to her ill-fated final flight, a story that continues to captivate and intrigue the world, but not now. That's in part 4. Welcome to part 2 of the Amelia Earhart Chronicles, not what it's called. By the way, this intro has a bit of human touch to it, not your typical AI script. Not written, I definitely wrote that with AI. Tried to fool you this time by saying it wasn't really written by AI.
The pizza is here.
The pizza is here. Good timing. And we got the pizza. Perfect.
Yeah, the pizza was really good.
It was very good. We had a honey mustard chicken pie.
Yeah.
I put my diet aside tonight because I don't mind dying of a stroke sometimes.
Shout out to Marie for telling me about this place on Instagram. It was pretty good.
Shout out, Marie. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, that's all I really had to
say.
say. She'll probably never hear this in her life.
Oh, speaking of shout outs.
Anyways.
Special shout out to Abby. You know who you are.
Boom.
She fucking loves the show. She listens every episode. I love you. We love you. Bye. I just wanted to do that real quick because we had a conversation about it.
Yeah. No, that was
Say
very
something
sweet.
nice.
I don't know you too well, but we love you for listening to the podcast and keep supporting us. Keep sharing it to your friends.
All right.
We love you.
All right, I put the gun away. You ready? So, okay, we're going to get to our sources. Just kidding. If you're interested in the sources for this episode, we have them all listed at the beginning of part 1. Go check it out if you haven't already, as this is part 2, and that one comes first.
It would kind of defeat the purpose if you started here and then listen to part 1.
If you're going to listen to part 2, you should listen to part 1 because otherwise you're going to be confused with context. There's a lot of names. You need to know what they are. And with that, let's fly back into the world of Amelia Earhart.
Boom. I'm ready.
All right.
So what's Amelia doing these days?
Amelia learns to fly.
Psh, I don't believe you.
No way. Amelia Earhart flying a plane.
Flying?
All right. Last we left off, Amelia had been bitten by the flying bug after a stunt pilot blew her away at an expedition. Ah! She blew away. As we had spoken about, Amelia was on her way to make a promising career in the medical field, though she was unsure of how she would approach the profession. That's wrong. Amelia was on her way. As we spoke about earlier, last episode, Amelia was on her way to make a promising career in the medical field, though she was unsure of how she would approach the oppression.
The oppression.
The oppression. Mr. Krabs is in there.
Standing at the concession, plotting his oppression.
Thank you. And to add to that confusion, her parents had just moved to Los Angeles and were begging and pleading with her to come to California with them. And though it seems that we are not sure which one caused the other, Amelia would drop out of medical school and move to LA to be with her parents. But she would never re-enroll and claimed by this point that aviation had caught me. She's from Long Island.
She's a Long Island psychic.
She's the Long Island psychic, Amelia Earhart, it turns out. I don't know if I should go in this plane.
It might
crash.
Aviation caught me.
I don't want to go near coconut crabs. They make me itch. While in Los Angeles, Amelia would be surrounded by pilots as flying had become one of the most popular outdoor sports in town. LA was a hotbed for flying specifically. I think it has to do... I'm pretty sure I wrote a little bit of this, but I think that it was such a hotbed for flying. Sorry, I'm fixing my headphones if that sounds weird. I think it was such a hotbed for flying because of Hollywood. So okay. I think a lot of the stunt planes just obviously were in Hollywood.
Was there like a boom period where like stunt planes were like used in movies?
Yes.
Really?
And it was now, yeah. It was the 20s.
Yeah.
The 20s and then after the war. Mm-hmm. And I could be wrong. I don't remember if I'm misremembering. Oh my God, I have so much gas. I don't remember if I'm misremembering someone else, but I'm pretty sure that later in her career, she did fly a couple of stunt planes in films. Oh my God.
Right.
In films.
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh my God, I can't stop. This is just fucking, I feel like I'm going crazy right now. Here we go. All right.
You had one slice.
I had one single slice and I feel like my whole body's revolting right now. Every weekend, all 20-some-odd airfields would put on a show of tricks, races, and daredevil stunts. Amelia was immediately hooked. And being the dreamer that she was, she found the place that had the biggest name and the largest runway and a star pilot, Earl Daggerty. Earl, by all accounts at that time, was the most distinguished pilot alive and appointed Dean of Flying in the USA. Now, I looked up what the Dean of Flying was in the USA.
That was my question.
I gotta be honest with you. Couldn't find fucking anything. This could be a total made-up thing.
Is it just a nickname?
I don't know. I think at that time they were just like, well, we got... No one knows what this is, so we need someone.
I think so, because like that seems like a good like nickname. Like I remember like there was a wrestler, I don't know his name, but his nickname was the Dean of Mean.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
was it I'm not gonna make the joke. Stupid joke.
All right.
Yeah. I was gonna say Benoit, but stupid joke. He's held his family.
He
had been flying for 10 years.
minutes in, Andrew.
Killed his whole family.
And himself.
Hell yeah, he did. He had been flying for 10 years at this point and was generally just a fucking madman, right? He would unfortunately he would unfortunately pass in a crash in 1928, in death being known as America's greatest stunt pilot.
Was this crash, like, was he doing a stunt at that time? Oh my goodness.
Yes, he was.
What kind of stunt?
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I think that he was doing some type of like a nosedive barrel roll and just kept nosediving.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things we're going to kind of reiterate on multiple times is that there's a point that I want to make, and it's going to be very in your face and obvious, but the point that I want to make is how dangerous that flying at this time was, because the mystery of Amelia Earhart dying really goes away when you start to realize that like all of her friends were already dead by the time she went missing. Like, none of them lived. Like, they all died by 40. The only person that lived to be older, we're going to get to her in a little bit. Actually, we're going to get to her right now. She's the only person that lived to be a ripe old age. She lived to be like 95. And she died in bed, surrounded by her family. But it was because no one liked her, because she just refused to do anything dangerous. And it's really funny in hindsight that she was just fucking right.
They were just like, oh, you don't risk your life enough. Screw you.
Yeah, you have no balls. And then he dies. It's ridiculous. But anyway, obviously being the student of the #1 pilot in the country was harder than Amelia or her father Edwin thought it would be. So instead, they settled for Amelia to take her first flight at Emory Rogers Airfield with a young yet very impressive pilot, Frank Hawks.
It's a great sick name. Oh
especially
my God.
For a pilot. What are the chances that someone born in like 1898 was named Hawks, and he's going to be a pioneer of fucking flying. And all of these names, they're not just throwaway names. They're all like extremely important people to aviation, because at this time there were quite literally like 27 people licensed to fly planes.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the United
Like,
States.
yeah, you're literally all the pioneers of flying.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Frank Hawks. Okay. Frank was another madman, but his focus was on speed. He would go on to break various speed records until a fatal crash in 1938. He would take Amelia on her first trial flight, but refused to go with just her, feeling that if it was just the two of them, she would jump out of the plane because she was a woman. And this is something that we've spoken about before. And John Keel always says that the FBI's reason for not disclosing like any type of alien research or anything like that is because back in the 60s, one of the things they would say is like women would like throw themselves out of like kill themselves by throwing themselves out of like high places and stuff. I don't know why they just thought that women would just want to jump to their deaths. It was really, they treat them like dodo birds. It's really strange.
Like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Eject button.
Ah, it's a plane! And then just jump down head first to your death, like calm as a cucumber. It's fucking weird. Anyway, and though Amelia would completely fall in love with flying, Hawks was not the one that she wanted to learn from, as she was too proud to subject herself to his views. He was very much like, you're a fucking, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
you know?
Probably just reminded her of her grandfather.
That's a great fucking point. Yeah. He probably did. Amelia was determined to find a new teacher, but by this time, a woman. And that she did. At one of the other LA airfields, she would come across 24-year-old Netta Snook. What a name.
Even better name. Yeah,
Netta Snook.
This is crazy.
Netta, whose real name was Mary Anita Snook, was also a pioneer while having a safer approach than her male colleagues. She was also the first woman in aviation to own and operate her own commercial airfield. So she was a pioneer in her own way.
Right.
It was during this time that flying was the most magical for her. Both Amelia and Netta were young and surrounded by other like-minded peers, constantly pushing each other to do amazing things. But flying during that time was inconceivably dangerous, with bailing midair not even being an invented mechanic yet. You just were in the plane.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why she switched to pants is, one, she had fat ankles. Two, when she put her leg over, when you have to like stretch over, you just can't do it in a dress because you get caught.
Right.
You had to like climb in over like the cockpit shields.
So you had to really just accept, like, you're going to live or you might die.
Yeah. There was no in between. Like
Yeah.
the first parachutes didn't happen until like the early 1930s.
That's what I was gonna ask. Yeah, like when did like ejecting become possible?
I don't think that it was like way after this. Maybe like 3-4 years, but it didn't become like an actual thing until World War II for the most part.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You just never think about these things.
It's just when it became a necessity.
Yeah, because they were like, well, we could just lose everyone immediately, or we could give them a fucking shot. Yeah. And that's what they did. But they glorified it amongst themselves, viewing it as the ultimate adventure or a swift death in the blaze of glory. And I think Susan Butler sums this up beautifully in a little quote. I have it here. Amelia had a splendid time with Netta. In those early golden moments before anyone she knew was killed, nothing went wrong. There was just the experience of mastery of a new element, the glorious sense of power and freedom. And then people fucking just died. They all understood that what they were doing was amazing, and they all understood that what they were doing was they were pioneers of this new thing.
Right.
And none of them had really gotten hurt. They've gotten close calls, but no one they knew or really like were really close with had died.
Yeah.
So they were all just kind of like, they were just young, nothing could happen to us, we're gonna live forever type
until
they didn't live forever.
Happened.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Though.
To be fair, they all did kind of die in their 30s, so they did get past that young age without dying, but
right.
I mean that's not really too much of a fucking
I mean, I feel like that's kind of the thing with anything, like
anything dangerous like this.
Before anyone knew cigarettes killed people and nothing was wrong, we just loved them.
Yes, but I think the difference is that like it's not obvious that cigarettes are going to kill you if you have zero idea of how medicine works. But like, it's pretty obvious you're taking a risk of your life going in an airplane up in the air.
Okay.
They crash like 70-something% of the time they landed, and that 30%'s a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot, mate.
30% is a lot. I didn't know I could do that accent. Interesting. Piano legs. This is the next part of it. We're finally going to get to why she wore pants. And I kind of gave it to you. She had fat ankles. You could find pictures. She had abnormally fat ankles for the person she was. She was a very thin, slender person.
Okay.
And by all accounts, I don't know if it's just because I'm slowly falling in love with her as a person, but she was not like an ugly person. And by all accounts of the time, everyone considered her to be like abnormally attractive.
Yeah, sure.
But you can find one picture of her in a dress walking, and you see her ankles are real fat.
It literally says photos of Amelia Earhart showing body fat / body mass of arms and legs inconsistent with a weight of 118 pounds.
She weighed 118 pounds. She was 5'3", and she had the fattest ankles of anyone I've ever seen. Unbelievable. Anyway, I love you, Amelia. I hope that you're doing good. I mean, you definitely could stand on those two legs. Piano legs, that's what they called her. Here we go. Since Amelia grew up surrounded by her grandparents' wealth, she styled herself like the proper lady of the time, with dresses and long hair. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that whole thing about her getting in the plane. I thought that was last episode. We didn't even get to that yet. It's right now.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't hear about fat ankles.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
My bad.
Yeah. We're here now, though.
We're here now. But once she fell for flying, she started to wear slacks and knee-high boots, adopting what the men who flew in the military wore. Plus, getting into these planes was really hard to do in a dress, and as it required you to stretch your legs over the windshields and into the cockpit, like I said. Right. So figure, I'm going to show you, but we're not filming anymore. Forget it. Though the shorter cropped style of hair was growing popular among women in flying at the time, Amelia thought it might fit her, but was hesitant to cut her hair. She was worried that if she did, she would consistently be seen in pants and short hair and would suffer the same fate as Netta. And frankly, everyone assumed that she was a lesbian.
Is that how it was back in the day? Just if you had short hair,
like,
you were just...
Yeah. Amelia didn't want that. But when a little girl told her she was surprised that she was a pilot since her hair was long, Amelia would immediately cut it and was pleasantly surprised when she didn't gain the same reputation as Netta. So they were just kind of like, she's still kind of hot. That's kind of what it was, like quite literally. And she loved that. She was really into that. She liked being the hot one.
I feel like they were just calling them a lesbian because they just weren't attracted.
Yeah, well, Netta, the way that they described her is that she would always be wearing denim overalls and have grease on her face from the plane she was fixing.
Yeah, that doesn't really help
and
her
then,
cause,
like, Amelia was specifically very into the latest fashion and being very fashionable, and she was also, like, she carried herself very womanly and very feminine. So I think that she just, they overall were showing themselves to the public in two different ways. I don't really think Snook cared. Right. Amelia definitely fucking cared.
100%.
Yeah, she cared what people
thought
looking at her.
Like you said, she had to kind of maintain the reputation of her family. So,
I think it grew up coming in from that, like, Southern Belle type of environment that she grew up in. I think that's 100% the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is where Amelia felt flying was made for her. As her entire life, she was always very, very self-conscious about her legs and her ankles. But again, Susan Butler will explain this for me, as she just has the most hilariously blunt way of putting things. You ready? Amelia was always been acutely aware of her attributes and self-conscious about her drawbacks. She was rather vain of her hands, which were beautiful with long tapering fingers. She didn't mind her blonde hair, except that it was straight and needed constant curling. But she knew she had a problem she had been aware of from a very young age. Her legs. They were long, but far from shapely. The problem specifically was her fat ankles. Her observant cousin, Catch Chalice, thought she showed great objectivity, that she was quite right not to be a fan of her legs, that because of her thick ankles, her legs seemed to be the same all the way down. Piano legs, they are sometimes called. I only included this because she included this, but did we really need to include this, Susan?
I think it was a cute little story.
It's cute, yeah.
And honestly, anytime you could bring up a name like Catch Chalice,
man.
I would bring it up too.
Amelia was very aware of her style, and she flaunted it. She had been seen as very attractive for the time, and just like everything around her in her life, she saw... And just like everything else in her life, she saw keeping up with her appearance as a competitive sport. For example, one time during a training session with Netta, the two were attempting to take off when a cylinder malfunctioned, causing Amelia to react and stall the engine to avoid hitting the tree line. Though the crash destroyed the plane, Amelia's quick wit saved the two from disaster. Netta claims Amelia had cut the engine before she even realized what was happening. She was just naturally talented. She immediately knew what to do. But when they crashed, however, Netta would stumble out of the wreck to find Amelia perfectly fine, powdering her face so that she would look good for when the reporters inevitably showed up. Do you know what Amelia's going to continue to do? Amelia's going to continue to saw. That's the name of the next section.
Oh, I thought she was going to maybe sail a boat.
Oh, you've really missed the point.
Oh!
All right, let's go back to part 1. All right. So, do you know what a pilot needs to be really considered a pilot? A fucking plane. Amelia needed her own plane to be taken seriously as a pilot, but planes have always been an expensive commodity. At this point, the planes being flown in most airfields were either Canucks or Jennies, single-engine biplanes from World War I that made it into circulation. Canucks were Canadian, Jennies are American, but they're basically the same plane.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both of these planes handled like garbage, and Amelia noted that during her lessons. So when it was time for her to buy a plane, her and Edwin looked into the Airster instead, a faster, more maneuverable single-engine biplane made by Bert Kinner. That was double the price. Very expensive plane.
I can imagine.
Edwin decided Amelia needed the best. Just like he would, he just said, I'm not settling for anything less. And in this case, it worked out, you know?
It made sense.
It made sense.
Especially
It didn't make sense. She could have flew the plane that all of the professionals were flying and learning onto.
Yeah, but when it comes down to keeping up reputation, I could see why they're going to look for the most expensive one.
Edwin needed to ruin them financially every single time they made a decision.
100%. Yeah.
With her mother, Amy, only agreeing that she could buy the plane if she decided to live home. So the deal was that Amelia would move in with them in California. They would buy her the plane or help her finance the plane. They weren't buying it outright. Help her finance the plane. And then she would then live home and continue to fly.
I think that's a fair trade.
I think it's a fair trade as well.
How old was she at this time?
She was, I want to say 20, 21.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, old enough to fly planes.
Right.
The plane cost $2,000, which would come out to $34,000 today. So it's, again, not cheap. Netta would teach Amelia for about a year, with the two realizing how different they were as time went on. Netta was a lot safer-minded than Amelia, and really any of the other pilots, even feeling her to be unnecessarily reckless. But Amelia also claims in her first book that Netta, I was going to call her Anita, Netta forgot to fuel the plane during a lesson, with Netta claiming that it was Amelia's lack of skill that caused the crash. So they crashed during a lesson. Amelia claims it's because Netta didn't put enough fuel in the plane. Netta's saying it's because Amelia wasn't talented enough to fly the plane.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Amelia.
I love Amelia, and there's really nothing you could do to get me off of Amelia's side.
Right.
Right? Because she's America's sweetheart in the sky.
Exactly.
But Netta is, I think that she just kind of was just always jealous she wasn't as big. That's kind of what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it probably got to a point where Amelia was probably skilled enough. And Netta probably just got a little jealous. Yeah,
and we're going to see that Amelia does at some point drop Netta after the year's over and move on and becomes a better pilot because she goes to someone who wants to show her how to innovate and not just fly a plane straight.
Yeah, I like that she started with the safe approach and learned how to maneuver the planes properly. And then she kind of goes into the risky part of it. You know what I mean?
That's a great point. I think that honestly, now that you say it, I think that definitely played a role in why she ended up being such a talented pilot in general.
Sure.
Because she had this baseline of very safe way to fly, and then she would just add the reckless to that. But that's a good point. The differences between the two eventually became too much to handle, and Amelia would go ahead and seek a new instructor. But it's important to note that Amelia was legendary for staying in touch with friends and never saw or spoke to Netta after 1924.
Imagine social media was around during this.
She fucking straight up didn't like her. She would have unfollowed her immediately.
Yeah. I'd be putting out hashtag Team Amelia.
Yeah. Me too, brother.
Come on.
Yeah, I'd be putting out hashtag we need to find her.
Hashtag screw Netta.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hashtag screw Snook. You know?
Snook.
Amelia saw Netta as phase 1, learning how to operate an airplane. But now she felt she needed to gain the experience to fly solo, which was always a goal of hers. She would eventually end up under the guidance of John Matteo, an ex-Army pilot who specialized in stunt flying at Kenner Airfield. Under his watchful eye, Amelia completed phase 2, making loops, barrel rolls, insane turns, and dives second nature.
Oh, that actually kind of adds up to what I was saying.
Yeah, she started, he taught her how to do all the tricks that Frank Hawk was doing, funny enough.
Right.
that she was watching as, holy shit, I need to learn that. She quickly learned how to do it herself. He would comment and say that she was an absolutely unbelievable pilot, just natural at it. And because of this, she would go on to kind of get to the same level as the guys that refused to teach her in the beginning without giving her an attitude, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. It seems like you know, it's you see that with athletes too, like in the current day. Like there's just things that like I was watching like an interview of like Luka Doncic on the Mavericks, and he's like, they're like, how did you learn how to do like this like one-legged move? And he's like, I just do it.
Yeah,
like,
I've never,
I don't practice it. And it's like, that just proves that like, there's just some people that have that natural gift versus like people that have to be taught and learn it.
Hell yeah.
And it shows that she just has that like innate gift.
Within months, Amelia would go on her first solo flight and started making a reputation for herself, now being sort of Netta Snooks of the Kenner Airfield. So she was now the female pilot that people were going to see.
Yeah.
Like Snooks was.
No, she took the throne.
Yeah. And I think this shook Snooks.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. Shooks Snooks.
Or Snooks.
I don't think so. I think she needs to be better. But unlike Netta, Amelia kept pushing her ability, getting better and better, until she was a major draw for weekend air shows. Amelia even entered her plane into the first air rodeo with one of the craziest stunts I've ever heard of. You ready for this? This is genuinely like, oh my God. Because you know that there was not safety nets.
Right.
Earl Daggerty and her former instructor, Frank Hawk, would fly two planes parallel to each other. While doing that, another very legendary pilot, Wesley May, would climb out of Earl's plane with a 5-gallon tank of gasoline on his back, jump over to the wings of Frank's plane, refuel the tank, then going back to Earl's plane to finish the stunt, and they did it without crashing.
Wait, like he was jumping onto the plane in midair?
Earl was flying the plane right next to Frank Hawks. They were flying perfectly parallel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He got on the wing of Earl's plane with with 5 gallons of gasoline on his back, jumped to the other plane, refueled it, then jumped back while midair and landed.
How?
These guys were fucking crazy. We need to reiterate how fucking insane these people were. They are not normal.
There's no way like that's allowed anymore.
This is the evil Knievel of their time. They are just like
that's the best way to put it.
Bro, it is so crazy that people still think it's a conspiracy that she died. They were flying. Basically, they were flying like fucking bathtubs with wings. They were just the worst things.
Because they were probably just
they were death traps.
They were held together by nuts and bolts and tape.
It's fucking terrifying.
Did they do make it a point to advertise her as like this like unbelievable woman pilot?
Correct.
Like that was like a huge thing in
yes.
at that time, yeah.
And that becomes not only does that become like a draw for the show, that becomes the draw for the show.
Of course.
Holy shit, a woman could do something. That's basically what the reaction was.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, but she has a vagina. You know, it's crazy. And by participating in that rodeo, Amelia's name was now equal with those legendary pilots for the first time. And they were no longer looking at her as some random woman that would jump out of a plane. She had found their respect. And this is major because this really helps push her forward in her career in general.
What were, like, I know they were doing the parallel stunt. What was her, like, famous stunt?
She was doing a lot of speed stunts. Okay. So she was just doing, like, a lot of, like, flybys, barrel rolls. Right. They would do this thing where they would nosedive, put the engine in an intentional stall, and then restart it and then swoop before they hit the ground. And that was the entire trick, was that they were able to restart the engine.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just didn't, and they would just die.
Oh
yeah,
God.
It's really
like,
crazy.
People would like be at these rodeo shows and watch like planes explode.
You know what it's like? It's like NASCAR now.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like NASCAR, monster trucks. It's the same thing. Eventually, someone's gonna get fucking crushed, and everyone's gonna be watching because that's the point.
Right.
So it's just kind of, it sucks, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Like when Earl Earhart fucking crashed.
Right.
I got it, man.
Wait, what?
I don't know if that's his name. Earhart. That's the driver. It is his name. Is Earhart.
Yeah.
Dale Earhart? It's Dale Earhart?
Dale, yeah.
Dale Earhart. Junior death. Yeah, Dale Earhart Jr. Fucking honestly, man, I think you should pay me money. Get out of here.
This is like the one sport I don't know.
NASCAR, I wouldn't even consider it a sport, number one. Number two, I know nothing about it. But it's a sport.
Oh, Earnhardt. Dale Earnhardt. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, Earhart. He, I just don't, like, I don't know.
Look at that mustache.
Yeah.
Anyways.
You know, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I know all the NASCAR people are going to be like, oh, you know, I'm going to get thousands of emails. You know, can't piss off those NASCAR people. I'm going to get thousands of emails from people are going to really get upset from this podcast. So, got to move on here.
Okay.
You know, from that non-sport.
Yeah, we'll hop off.
Though Amelia was becoming a bit of celebrity in LA, being seen with silent film stars of the time. I keep wanting to say silent film stars. Amy and Edwin still struggled as they did for Amelia's entire life. Edwin had first moved to LA, finding God and buying them a modest house where Amy would eventually follow him. But the past had taught the two that they should not be trusted with business decisions. Because of this, Amy and Edwin would pool their money together and buy a mine that a friend of Amelia's was selling. So Amelia actually put them off to this one, right?
Okay.
Edwin and Amelia would make the trip down to go see Peter, the owner of the mine, and give him the money on a nice rainy day. But once they arrived, they and Peter would be caught in a flash flood with Amelia and Edwin losing the money in the water and Peter straight up drowning in his truck.
Oh my God.
They almost died, like literally. The Earharts were once again in financial ruin. But this time, Edwin decided to finally finalize the divorce. He was done, and he forced Amy to do it as well. The three of them left to find a new place to live. They would leave California with Amelia promising herself the next time she went back, she would be flying there solo. She even went one further. She said not only does she want to fly solo in her own plane, but she also wants to use her own maps to get there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Dude,
so,
like...
Now, we started this episode. She was like 19.
Yes.
We've gone through almost 10 years now. She's when this happened, she's about 26, 27.
Why is Edwin such a moron? I'm sorry.
To be fair, like they were like, you know what? Our daughter's really smart. Let's just let her do it. And then just like the worst possible outcome could have had. Did we get mozzarella sticks with the
No, I'm sorry.
Unfucking real, Chris.
I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna honestly next time I'm gonna start hurting you.
All right.
All right.
Anyway, can we do it on live in here?
Yeah, just fucking. I want fried cheese, damn it. But yeah, they just followed her lead, and she just kind of fucked them by mistake. It's really sad and fucked up. Poor Peter, man. He just wanted to get rid of his mind so he could leave. But honestly, if they're getting flooded by just rain, I feel like maybe that's why he wanted to get rid of it. It probably was a blessing, even though they technically paid for it.
He was like, I just want to sell this shit.
Like, finally, I get to retire. Oh, they're almost here.
He's just fucking dead.
Just died.
Poor guy. Ugh.
And the letter that Amelia sent back to her sister, she wrote a letter to Muriel, and she was like, the worst thing has happened. Peter's fucking dead. We lost the money. We're in shambles. What are we going to do?
Oh my God.
So now at this point, Amelia is 27 and was running out of options fast. She had already been engaged to a man during this time named Sam Chapman of Whitehead, okay? And now, if you look up Sam Chapman, this is the only thing that Whitehead, Massachusetts has going for them, is the fact that Sam Chapman, a guy that almost married Amelia Earhart, is from there. It was during this uncertain time Amelia began to rebuild her life. She was completely broke, racking up medical bills due to an infection in her sinus that needed to be periodically drained that cost a lot of money to drain, and trying to look out for her totally distraught mother, who was not handling the divorce well. The three now lived in a very modest house in Boston, with Amelia working several odd jobs and going back to school in hopes that something would stick. Nothing did. 2 years of meaningless work and getting nowhere is what followed, with Amelia also losing the ambition that she was so famous for. She had officially run out of options and started to make the necessary accommodations to move to Whitehead, Massachusetts to be with Sam Chapman. At this point, Amelia started to become interested in the Women's Educational and Industrial Union, or just the union. They had a few years earlier forced the Massachusetts Legal Aid Society to hire a female lawyer, and this really excited Amelia. So she figured one last hurrah before she would go to the Boylston Street office of the union on August 18th, 1926, which would end up being one of the most important turning points of Amelia's life, like no joke. This turned her life around. If she didn't do this, she would have been a nobody who's just went to Whitehead, Massachusetts, and no one would know her.
I'm actually distraught on
Sam?
how this is just falling apart, and I still blame Edwin heavily.
I blame Edwin entirely. Yeah, he never gave them a stable childhood. Like, it's tough though, because Amelia has the dreamer part of Edwin with the success part of Alfred. So it's like if there's someone that can take the attitude of Edwin and make it work, it's someone like Amelia, because she has the drive to actually do it, where Edwin's just a dreamer, but he doesn't have the drive to get it done.
Yeah.
She does.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that drive isn't enough to like get to the other side of the road. You know?
Yeah.
So like Edwin's still just constantly veering off the road, and she's like, I'll just drive. And he's like, all right. And then they crash into a tree. So it's like, it's kind of tough, you know? Everything changes when the Fire Nation attacks. That's the name of this next part. It's not when the Fire Nation attacks. The Fire Nation isn't real. Get over yourself. Amelia was given her application to the Union, exaggerating her skills and putting her fiance Sam Chapman as a character reference. Nothing has changed. We still have been doing the same things we've been doing forever. She straight up lied and was like, yeah, I know how to do this. And they were like, all right, cool. They're like, who's your reference? This guy Sam in Whitehead. It's like, oh, we didn't know it was your fiance.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Still lying. And just to show why she hated the idea of marrying Mr. Chapman, here is the actual word-for-word reference that he wrote in its entirety. He didn't address anyone. He just sent this on a piece of paper, and this was it. Miss Amelia Earhart is all right. I've known her for 4 years, and she's a very dear friend of mine. She's a good scholar and is capable in any field she may claim. Sam Chapman.
You're hired.
And what's funny is he didn't even put an address, so it never got there.
Right.
She just found it.
Yeah. It's like, oh, let me hand this over.
Absolutely hilarious.
It's like, probably just like scribbled in like the most ridiculous handwriting.
He didn't even put for whom it may concern nothing. He just started speaking.
She's all right.
She's all right. You know?
She is capable in any field that she may claim.
She's capable in any field she may claim. Even still, the interviewer saw Amelia as an extraordinary person, commenting on how she had a pilot's license. She thought that was really cool. She was then sent to interview with the head worker. It was kind of like the CEO of this place. The head worker of the Dennison House, which was it seems like it was an orphanage for children up to the age of 16. That's what it seems like, based on what she was doing.
Makes sense.
It may have been more than that, and that's just the part that she helped in, but I could find stuff. I just didn't look. But
yeah,
the Dennison House is kind of famous, so
I think it's believable.
Yeah. Marion Perkins, what? Oh.
The head worker.
Marion Perkins was the head worker, and they hired her as a social worker on the spot, even though she had zero experience in the field.
Yeah, but she's capable in any field, so it doesn't matter.
Sam Chapman was right. Yeah, any field that she may claim.
Yeah.
In fact, Marion states that she hired her so fast that it surprised herself when she realized that they didn't talk about her past employment at all. She just said she was like the most charming person on the planet.
Yeah.
And they were like, I fucking love you. I need you here. And they were like, oh, by the way, what do you do? And she was like, I've never done this before. And they're like, all right, cool.
You're in. Yeah.
Social work at the time was the way to get ahead as an ambitious woman of the time. Many of the women that paved the way for the changes in the 1920s were social workers, with the most famous being Jane Addams, who was the mentor of Vita Scudder, Catherine Coleman, and Emily Balch, who then founded the Dennison House. So Jane Addams founded the Hull House, which is like a very, very famous woman's home.
Okay.
It was like the first of its kind, and it revolutionized how unwed women and women with children out of wedlock and stuff like that were treated.
Sure.
And places where they could get help.
Makes sense.
She is the one that directly influenced the three to open the Dennison House. So Amelia Earhart is kind of like in this line of successors that are like very influential women that changed the way that women worked in their time.
Now I could totally understand why she was given the job, just based off of her personality and
they saw
what she was about.
What no one else and what everyone else saw since she was a child. There was something special about it.
Yeah. You know? If there was anything for her to do outside of being a pilot, this is probably the next thing.
Yeah, it's solid. Amelia was surrounded by powerful women who knew their worth and used that to empower other women, including Amelia.
Right.
Amelia would go on to do incredible things. She continued to fly while also making social work her entire focus.
Nice.
She would primarily work with Chinese and Syrian women and children, helping Syrian, my Syrian crusader over there.
I love it.
Helping to teach them English and help them acclimate better with the Boston society. Not Boston. Boston, it's a typo. For all accounts, she was adored by the community, using a lot of the same methods to comfort as her mother taught her all those years earlier in Des Moines. So the way that her mom would specifically go out of her way to help the less fortunate in Des Moines when she was a kid, she took those and directly used that to help people, and that's how she treated people.
Yeah.
Within just a year, she would be promoted to full-time, with her running the girls' kindergarten, running the girls between the ages of 4 and 15, along with such a large list of activities that they joked around that she owned the place.
Mr. Perkins was a good sense of character.
Mr. Perkins.
Yeah.
Like the guy that opened up Perkins. The diner?
Marion Perkins.
Marion Perkins. That's a woman.
That's a woman. Okay. All right, Mrs.
That's why I was confused. Like, who's Mr. Perkins?
I don't know. I was kind of assuming the
Marion. Yeah.
But yeah, very good sense of character on this woman. But yeah, no, I'm really impressed with. I feel like she was kind of at a place where she was lost, and I feel like she's kind of finding herself again.
Yeah.
So
this place made her realize that it seems like, from what I could gather, that she loved the idea of helping people.
Sure.
But the medical field wasn't the way she wanted to go about it, and that was the only way she knew she could get into that field.
Right.
And then social work kind of opened up this other avenue of helping people without having to be a nurse.
Yeah.
And I think she just loved that idea, because I don't really think she loved medical science as much as she just loved the idea of being able to help people using that medical science.
Makes sense.
So I think that's why she just didn't excel very much. And I mean, she did fine. She had like a B, and she never did anything in medical school. So that's kind of fucking nuts. But, you know, whatever. Her reputation as an incredible social worker started to travel out of the Dennison house. And soon the heads of social workers all over Boston, knew of Amelia, or knew her name at the very least. She was getting quite a reputation as like an incredible social worker, just in terms of, we need to get her to help with events and stuff like that.
Right.
And then something amazing would happen. In a moment of pure chance, her two loves would come together in a strange way. Amelia would be asked to fly over a city as a passenger to draw pamphlets for an upcoming carnival. With that, getting her picture in the newspapers across the country, with a little buzz for her growing. A female pilot with the fashion sense of a movie star, she was just a massive hit immediately. People were they loved her. They were like, who is this woman?
She was more well known for this at this time than anything flying related.
This is the most publicity she had gotten.
Okay.
From what it seems like there was kind of like a nationwide, like a one nationwide story that ran, but it seems like Boston was really, a lot of stories about her were being run in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very proud to have her there as the female pilot.
Right. No, that makes sense.
So they would just show it off, more or less. It was at this time that a new airfield would open up in Quincy, about 10 miles outside of Boston. And this is probably one of the most insane. I was going to say coincidences, but this is just straight up synchronicities that we talk about.
I love it. Yeah.
Magical thought here. Just listen to how crazy this is, okay?
Okay.
The owner's name of the new airfield was Harold T. Dennison. Just like the Dennison house.
Yeah.
But he had zero connection to the Dennison house whatsoever. He just happened to be named Dennison.
Okay.
And to make it even more crazy, he had become the vendor for Kinner Planes. The same Kinner Planes that Amelia had swore by a decade earlier with her father. For Harold Kinner. While Harold was in California meeting with Bert Kinner, Bert would tell him to contact Amelia when he went back to Boston, lauding her as a very talented pilot. So, just to clarify.
Right.
This guy, with the same last name as where Amelia is currently working, goes to one airfield in California to buy a plane, finds the airster, loves it so much he becomes a vendor for that person, and that person happens to be the person that sold Amelia her first plane. And then they hook up because of that, and this starts her career.
The world works in mysterious ways.
It doesn't. It works in very clear ways, damn it. It's all a simulation. If you look hard enough, you could see the fabric breaking around you.
So
something happened with my voice there. That was wild.
Dennison was the Kinner Planes.
Just totally ignored.
Dennison was the Kinner Plains vendor.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the same Kinner Plain. Wow.
Yeah, so he becomes a vendor for Kinner Plains,
Right.
who is Burt Kinner, the person that they bought their original
The
airster
airster.
from.
Right.
And again, at the time, this was not the ideal plane. It was either a Canadian Canuck or the American Jenny.
Right.
Those were the two planes that you bought at the time for what they were doing.
Right.
And she took a chance on this random guy who was making planes by himself in his place. He was just making them himself. And it ended up being like the most important connection networking wise that she had ever made, because it got her like an actual real opportunity.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Unbelievable. All right.
She started immediately working as a pilot at the new airfield, along with two other male pilots, Alan Bourdain and Franklin Kurt. And though Amelia was very qualified, she was not given a defined job, nor was she full-time, while the other two men held the clear job title of full-time pilots. Amelia would fly, but she was most responsible for everything else that the men didn't want to do, including decorating and running events. But all of that being said, when the news of the new airfield came out, the newspaper ran several articles about her almost exclusively, barely even mentioning that there were men that worked there. And she loved it because the men fucking hated it.
I could imagine. They were probably steaming. Yeah.
She loved it.
That's actually really funny. And I love that it seems like she probably didn't really complain much because she was happy to just be a part of it.
It seemed like at this point, she was just, everything she did went from turning to shit to turning to gold.
Yeah.
And I think she was just, she just couldn't believe it was.
She's like, I'm just going to keep going. And something right's going to happen.
Yeah. She rode the wave.
Yeah.
Fucking, who's a famous surfer? Tito from Rocket Power. But not all was well. But not all was well, as her and Sam Chapman grew further apart. Amelia had now turned 30 and had moved into the Dennison house. Sam, already feeling resentment towards Amelia as she had let her activities take up most of her time, saw moving out again and not with him as kind of a betrayal. And I kind of understand where he's coming from. He is sitting in Whitehead, Massachusetts, waiting for her. They are engaged, and he's just waiting for her to finish whatever she's doing so that they can get married. And every time they go to, it seems like this is the one, this is where it happens. She just does something without him anyway.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see how that's frustrating.
Especially at the time, because it must be extremely emasculating for a man to go through that in 1920.
My wife's doing all this without me.
She's flying planes, damn it. Like,
and Amelia just like, I don't fucking need this guy.
You know? And we know that he felt like Amelia was all right, and she could claim any categories that she claimed. What was it?
I don't know.
Amelia was very content without Sam, and from context, it feels like she was just with him as a last-ditch security effort and nothing more. It really seems like Sam was her absolute failsafe. Well, at least I won't be alone.
Yeah, it sounds like it was just like a formality at this point. Like they probably had a relationship, but with her doing everything she was doing, it probably just kind of broke off at that point.
From context, it seems like that's fairly accurate.
Yeah.
And also, it seems like the two of them were really good friends and kind of made it a relationship because the two of them were getting older, and it was kind of seen as like, why are you guys single at 30?
Yeah.
Close to 30?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So I think that's more of also why. But I think Sam really did have feelings for Amelia, or at least understood what he had. And I think Amelia just didn't care for him enough to give him the time of day.
I think she had more care for her passion than anything.
She saw the impossible image ahead, where he was just looking at, I just want to have a family life.
Exactly.
You know? And they were not on the same page with that.
Right.
Like I said, they enjoyed each other's company, but obviously not enough for her to put him first. Amelia would finally break off the engagement in 1928 when Sam firmly stated that after they were married, she would have to retire from flying.
Oh,
she said no.
Yeah,
she said sorry.
That was a no-go. Ultimatum that she was never gonna take.
And it was a big point of freedom for her as well, because now she's like, well, now I gotta make it work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she didn't have anyone holding her back, and she was getting a lot of attention from men.
I could imagine.
She was loving it. I mean, she was like, as someone who got attention her whole life, she went through a real bad period of time where she was not getting attention at all. And now it's like, not only is she getting attention, but they're all like, you are the best dressed, hottest pilot that I've ever seen. And she's like, all right, cool. You know, Amelia continued to bolster attention for herself in a bunch of ways. First would involve another titan of the early female flyers, Thea Rasht. She was German, so I may be saying that wrong. Okay. Thea had come to Denison to perform in a show, Denison Airfield, not Denison House,
right,
to perform a show drawing a crowd of almost 2,000.
Wow.
That is a fucking lot of people for a 1928 air show.
That's, yeah.
Goddamn.
Shocking.
But this is crazy, but a slight mishap in the form of engine failure would cause her to nosedive before gliding her plane directly towards the crowd of thousands. But at the last second, she managed to pull the plane to the side into a swamp on the side of the airfield. Though she was able to survive without killing anyone in an absolute display of nothing but pure skill, the paper still used this as a story to say women shouldn't be flying planes. This is where Amelia stepped in. Amelia saw this as an opportunity, and the very next day decided to do one of the most incredible demonstrations she had done up until that time, landing safe and sound. In one gesture, she had both boasted her own self-image and stood up for her friend Thea. She basically was like, I'm showing you that that was just something that happens to pilots that didn't happen to her because she's a female. And on top of that, if anyone else was flying that plane, very well, a lot of people would have died. That was her point.
Yeah. No,
and she did like an amazing job of actually stopping like the sexist version of the news from coming out because they couldn't say what they wanted to say because she was so good.
Of course. Yeah.
And it was crazy because Thea really appreciated that. And they were friends for their entire life. There's a lot of pictures of them for the rest of their lives, I should say.
How could you take that as they knew it was just something mechanical and they're like,
yeah.
They just literally, I know they were just taking
it's also, to be fair though, I think it's also a lack of understanding because they're just newspaper writers. They're not mechanics. They don't understand. To them, they're just like, it worked for John. Why didn't it not work for you?
Right.
And then it's just like, it's because you're a bitch. And then, they slap her and get oily sandwiches somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, Amelia is just a badass,
she's fucking
man.
so cool.
Absolute badass.
I'm in love with this woman. How many times do I have to say it?
She heard about it. She's like, cracked her knuckles.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let me just show
guess
them.
I'm taking the old Airster out today.
Let me just show them how it's done.
And it's funny because they said that she had like a low feminine voice, but like a low voice.
Right.
And she had an accent. She was from Kansas.
Sure.
So she had like a southern accent.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome. Goddamn. During this time, Amelia would also accomplish something that she had wanted to do for a long time. And that was write an article for the Bostonian, writing about the experience of flying, stating, quote, while women are hopelessly adventurous, they seem content to take their thrills viscerally and watch men do things a long time before they attempt to do them. I have hopes that this year we will see more women flying. Will it help my bright little hope to blossom into a bouncing reality if I give some aspects of flying from a feminine point of view? In the first place, I shall repeat what I said about beauty. There is beauty in adventure in all sports, and a beauty of the earth impossible to get in any other way. So basically, she's just saying, fucking, we should be flying shit too.
Yeah.
Us females.
Yeah. She was just out to prove something, man.
Yeah.
I love her passion.
This is where she kind of got her taste for writing as well.
Sure.
And this is where she becomes.
This probably made
Amelia
her
Earhart,
even more influential.
It did.
As a result. Yeah.
Funny you say that.
Sure.
Boston would become her playground. She grew more and more famous by the day, with women admiring her fight for their rights.
Hell yeah.
And men going crazy for her well-spoken and beautiful appearance. Amelia was finally finding her future to be bright. Her 20s, though filled with adventure and spirit, were also marred with tragedy and sadness. Though she managed to take care of herself and everyone around her, and for the first time in her life, she was who she wanted to be, and she was able to focus on no one but herself.
Yeah.
This was the time for Amelia to build Amelia.
Yeah.
And I love it. I am all for it.
She was lost and now she's found, and
like Jesus Christ. Yeah. This was her 40 days in the desert. You know, it was in 1927 when Charles Lindbergh would fly successfully across the Atlantic for the first time, one of the big, great achievements in flying. The trip took him 33 hours and netted him a total of $200,000. $25K from a wealthy flying enthusiast who proposed the idea in the first place, and then a combined $175K from the New York Times for both a story and afterwards a parade for him.
Oh my God.
That would be $3.6 million today. So he flew across the Atlantic and was just like, here you go, and was just handed $3.6 million.
Holy crap.
But if you recognize the name, this wasn't all good. Because Charles Lindbergh is also famous for a much darker event in history known as the Lindbergh baby, which you've probably heard that phrase before.
I heard the last name, and now it's kind of clicking. Yeah,
we will definitely cover it in the future, so I'm not going to get into it now. But it's a crazy fucking story.
Sure.
But anyway, my actual point was that by crossing the Atlantic, Charles Lindbergh brought aviation to places no one thought were possible. And many wanted to try the same flight and prove themselves worthy, with every single one of them failing, before Amelia was approached by someone requesting to speak to her on a private matter. The guy approached her and was like, hey, I want to talk to you about something. He was like, but I can't tell you what it is. You got to just meet me in person.
Right.
Amelia immediately assumed that he was a mobster trying to run alcohol, as this was during Prohibition. So she was like, I'm not fucking, get away from me.
Yeah.
Enough.
I
have
got
shit to
better
do.
stuff to do.
But this was, in fact, Hilton Raleigh, and was not interested in running alcohol, but instead crossing the Atlantic himself, and was trying to recruit a capable crew to help him along. Amelia's name alone had brought her to interview with the man funding the operation, George Putnam, and managed to win him over and anyone he brought to her to meet. This woman was a fucking rock star.
Sure.
She was, George Putnam basically was like, she walked in immediately. As soon as she said hello, I knew that this was the person that they were talking about because she was amazing. And then I just took her to everyone in the office and was like, look at how fucking cool she is. And she was like, hello. And they were all like, oh my God. Like everyone was just loved her. Right. Just absolute amazing.
Oh yeah. She has this just like,
just quality, an energy about
just
her.
Just a quality about her.
Yeah.
Like, everyone just wants to be around her and kind of learn from her and let her do her thing.
Like Charles Manson. Charles Manson.
God.
She was a smash hit, and for them, the perfect person to bring attention to the second ever transatlantic flight, as she would be the first woman to do it. So not only was it the second flight ever to cross the Atlantic, she would be the first woman to ever cross the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Even though she wasn't flying, she would be in the plane.
Yeah. This probably got her going crazy. She was probably like, I need to do this. She was probably, I need to do this.
Yeah.
They were telling us we couldn't fly in a rodeo show. Come on, like in an airfield show. This is what I need to do. So
she would get to the last stage of picking because there was a lot of pilots.
Right. Where
the leaders would choose who got to go along on the trip, and Amelia was told that she wouldn't be getting paid, nor would she be allowed to endorse any products in association with the trip. And finally, she was allowed to write about the flight, but any money made by the writing would be paid to the financiers. Though a terrible deal, Amelia understood that she would be taking a huge leap in her career, with this being a stepping stone. She would finally accept and agree to fly on a basically impossible flight. And with that concludes part 2 of Amelia Earhart. Join us next time as we explore her career leading up to her final flight. Hell yeah. Fuck you. Love you.
This is unbelievable. I can't believe we're like at the climax now.
That was the quickest episode I think we've ever done. And it was an hour. We recorded for an hour 15.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude,
and I didn't mean to leave everyone on a cliffhanger there, but this episode, in my opinion, is just, a lot of it is very interesting and it's just really fun. But if we would have got to like all of her successes to get to part 3, this episode would be 2.5, 3 hours long, like no joke.
And I just think it's really funny. Like I feel like they probably knew, like, oh, we could tell her she doesn't get anything from this and she's still gonna do it. So they probably took advantage in that way.
I think they definitely knew that she would have to just be like, sure, I mean, that's fine, because she knew that
they knew that she wanted to anyway. She probably would have done it. She would have probably paid to do it.
This is the early 20s aviation version of you're working for exposure. Right. So this is the same as like, edit our video. We're a big channel on YouTube. Everyone will know that you edited the video. You'll get exposure. We're not paying you shit. It's the same exact
100%. Yeah.
And like, to be fair, not being able to promote a product or anything like that, where they get her is that she was allowed to write about the flight, but she had to give any of the money made from those books had to go to the financiers.
Right.
I don't think you could even legally make that deal anymore. Yeah, I don't know. She knew what she was getting into by doing this, and she understood that the result of this, again, she was looking long-term and understood what the long-term repercussions of doing this would be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she understood that it won't help her right this second, but it'll get her better jobs in the future that'll eventually get her flying on her own.
Yeah. This would change from just a nationwide reputation to across the world. Like,
across the planet.
That you can't really put a price on that, honestly. So
Yep. It's unpriceable. What? What's that?
Invaluable.
No.
Priceless.
Priceless. Thank you. Impriceable. What the fuck am I saying? But yeah, with that ends Amelia Earhart Part 2. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you listened to Part 1 and you've now gotten to the end of Part 2 this far in, thank you so incredibly much. It really means a ton. And please make sure you rate, subscribe. Subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. But if you're watching on the podcast apps, please just go leave a rating and a review. Honestly, that helps push the show more than anything else. We've gotten a couple reviews recently, and we saw a little bump in daily downloads. So if you want to help out, that's the easiest way to help out for now, because we have no way of funding directly or buying merch yet or anything like that.
It would be incredibly appreciative. Yeah. It really goes a long way.
So please do that. Start begging, Chris.
Please.
He's on his knees.
Oh my God. It's all we can ask for.
It's all we could do. Chris, get off your knees and stop blubbering like a child.
Oh. All right. I'm back.
Oh, all right. But yeah, do you have anything you want to... Oh, sorry, not to just keep going. I have a podcast that I'm doing now.
Yes.
With my very good friend Shaylin. Say hi. I don't know if you heard it. We're going to be doing a podcast. We don't have a name for it yet, but you can find it on... It will be in the... I don't know. I have no idea. Honestly, this is a terrible plug because we don't have the name. I don't know what it's called. We don't know where it's going to be yet. But it will be on YouTube.
We are going to be working on this new podcast, and, it's in the works. I'm sure by part 3 of Amelia Earhart series, we'll have the name and all that situated. Well, the episode will probably be out.
I would say by part 3, an episode will be out. Yeah. So look out for that.
Yeah. But it's all going to be inside of this little podcast network that we're going to try to, create,
Listen, we just want
really
to make
exciting.
A lot of fucking content. And in the famous words of Chris, very well said, we like to hear each other. We like to hear ourselves speak. And the more that we get to hear each other speak, the more content we make for our audience.
Exactly.
That's a word for it, what you said
last
episode.
I did say that last episode.
And I thought that was the funniest phrase or way to put that ever. Because you basically were like, I just want to hear myself talk. And if you hear me talk, I will be happy. But yeah. All right, cool. That's it. That's all I got.
Be on the lookout for some updates to the social media pages. I'm Not
Correct.
Crazy Podcast NY on Instagram, and I'm Not Crazy Podcast on TikTok.
Yeah, the TikTok is going to be run by me. The Instagram is going to be run by Chris. Starting this episode, we're having a bit of a competition. So if you want to support me, go to TikTok. You want to support Chris, go to fucking Instagram.
Get over the Instagram. Screw the TikTok.
Don't screw
no,
the
I'm
TikTok.
sorry.
That is sexual assault.
Watch the TikTok. If you like TikToks, if you like Reels. I think
Reals.
Good milkshake.
They bring all the boys to the yard. I don't know where to go.
For real milkshakes. You know the one in the gas station?
Yeah. You put them in the thing and it's like...
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
But once again, thank you guys so much. We'll be back momentarily for part 3. And I can't wait to finish off this story.
I love Amelia. This has been so good. I need it done because I need to cover something else. I'm so excited to cover
and you want to speak about the current events?
Oh my God, I can't believe we didn't bring it up. They may have found their fucking plane, damn it.
Like, what are the fucking... We put the episode out. What, we put part 1 out, and then like 2 days later, they're like, oh, we may have just found her plane on the bottom of the ocean.
I am obsessed with the fact that I am a fucking wizard. I have magical properties about me. When we put the Watcher of Westfield, that was an early episode with our original host, Yusei. Shout out to Yusei. When we did that episode, we put the episode out, and then within like fucking 2 months, there was a Netflix movie made about it. Then we do the Amelia Earhart. They go to find a fucking plane. And then what was the other one? There was another one too that we did. And then like something wind up coming out about it really big afterwards. And I was like, what the fuck? I am a wizard. Follow me. I will bring you happiness. I will bring the end times. We will go into heaven together.
I love it. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night. I'm in love with you. Make sure you don't fly into the